In the heart of Louisiana lies a prison where history and suffering collide. Inmates work the fields for pennies, on land soaked with centuries of pain. This is Angola, America's largest maximum security prison, and its darkest secrets are just beginning to be revealed. Angola Prison, located in the heart of Louisiana, is the largest maximum security prison in the United States, stretching across more than 18,000 acres. From above, the sprawling landscape may seem calm, almost serene, with fields stretching endlessly toward the horizon, punctuated by watchtowers, barbed wire fences, and the occasional cluster of low-rise buildings. But the outward appearance hides a history steeped in brutality, oppression, and suffering, a history that extends far beyond the walls of the prison itself. Angola is not merely a place of incarceration. It is a living testament to the enduring legacy of slavery and forced labor in America, a place where the past continues to cast its long shadow over the lives of those within its gates. Before it was a prison, the land that would become Angola was one of the most infamous cotton plantations in the South. Named after the African nation from which many of its enslaved people were brought, Angola was acquired in the early 19th century and quickly became notorious for its harsh conditions. Life on the plantation was grueling. Enslaved men and women rose before dawn and labored under the relentless Louisiana sun, tending to the demanding cotton fields from sunrise until sunset. Punishments were severe and often violent. Whipping, shackling, and isolation were common responses to perceived mistakes or disobedience. Families were frequently separated, human dignity was stripped away, and death was an ever-present threat. The plantation's isolation made it nearly impossible for outsiders to intervene, leaving the enslaved population at the mercy of the owners and overseers. Over decades, Angola became a self-contained world of suffering, a microcosm of the broader institution of slavery in the American South, and its notoriety grew alongside the wealth it produced. With the end of the Civil War and the abolition of slavery, Angola underwent a dramatic transformation, though the suffering continued under a new guise. The plantation was converted into a prison farm as part of Louisiana's post-war penal system. While the status of its workers changed from enslaved persons to convicted inmates, the conditions of labor remained punishingly similar. The convict leasing system allowed the state to lease prisoners to private companies or utilize them for state projects, effectively maintaining a system of coerced labor. Inmates were compelled to work the same fields, cultivating cotton and other crops, maintaining the plantation infrastructure, and performing tasks under the strict supervision of guards. The work was physically demanding and the pay negligible. Often, prisoners earned only a few cents per hour or nothing at all, while the state profited substantially from their labor. Angola had evolved legally, but the social and economic dynamics of exploitation persisted. Even today, the echoes of this history remain tangible. Inmates rise before sunrise, lining up for roll call before heading into the fields to perform grueling labor under harsh conditions. Crops and livestock continue to sustain the prison financially, generating revenue that largely benefits the state while providing little compensation to those doing the work. The labor is often justified as vocational training or a form of discipline, yet the line between rehabilitation and exploitation is blurred. Many inmates find themselves trapped in cycles of punishing work, where survival within the prison system depends on their compliance, echoing the coercion endured by generations before them. Historical accounts and personal testimonies provide a glimpse into life on the plantation and the prison farm. Letters, newspapers, and memoirs recount the relentless toil and suffering of those who lived and worked on Angola. Former inmates describe waking before dawn, performing exhausting labor under the scorching sun, and returning to their cells physically and mentally drained, with barely enough resources to support themselves. Historians note that the transition from plantation to prison farm did little to alter the underlying power dynamics. The plantation and the prison functioned on the same principle: controlling labor and extracting value from those with little means to resist. Both operated under systems that disproportionately affected marginalized populations, reinforcing social hierarchies and perpetuating cycles of oppression. Angola Prison's history is inseparable from the broader story of racial oppression and economic exploitation in the United States. The land itself, once a symbol of wealth and control, continues to shape the lives of the people within its boundaries. The experience of inmates working in the fields for minimal pay is a stark reminder of how historical injustices can echo across centuries, influencing contemporary practices and policies. The ethical and moral implications of such labor continue to spark debate among policymakers, historians, and human rights advocates. Questions arise about the fairness of forced labor, the purpose of incarceration, and the responsibilities of society to those it confines. The fields of Angola, where laborers once toiled under the whip and now serve sentences in uniformity and under supervision, are more than just land. They are a reflection of a past that refuses to fade, a living testament to resilience, oppression, and the complexities of justice. Every sunrise brings inmates back to these grounds, where the labor of today intersects with the legacy of yesterday. Understanding Angola is not merely an exercise in historical curiosity, it is a necessary step in confronting the systems that continue to shape lives, limit freedoms, and define justice in America. As the sun sets over the vast expanse of Angola, casting long shadows across the fields and prison walls, one is reminded that history is never truly behind us. The echoes of the past reverberate in every footstep, every day of labor, and every life confined within the prison's boundaries. This is the story of Angola, a story of power, exploitation, endurance, and the continuing struggle for justice. It is a story that sets the stage for understanding life inside Angola today, where the weight of history meets the harsh reality of modern incarceration. Life inside Angola Prison begins long before sunrise, with a routine as rigid as the walls surrounding it. Inmates are woken early by alarms and guards, their every movement monitored and scheduled to enforce discipline and control. Roll call is the first ritual where punctuality is essential. Any misstep can lead to punishment, from lost privileges to solitary confinement. Here, compliance is not just obedience, it's survival. Those assigned to the fields march in lines to the vast farmland that has defined Angola for generations. Once worked by enslaved Africans and later by prison laborers, the fields remain central to daily life. Inmates spend long days planting, tending, and harvesting crops, and caring for livestock under the relentless Louisiana sun. The work is exhausting, often exceeding 8 hours with minimal breaks. Economics drive Angola's labor system. Inmates earn only cents or nothing, while their labor generates millions for the state. Administrators claim the work builds discipline and skills, but for most inmates it is mandatory, poorly compensated, and psychologically heavy. They perform grueling labor that sustains the very institution confining them. Labor extends far beyond the fields. Inmates clean, repair, and maintain the prison grounds. Educational and vocational programs exist but are limited and competitive. Recreation is tightly controlled, and meals are basic and uniform. Each day is a test of physical and mental endurance under strict routines. Yet human resilience persists. Inmates form bonds, build small routines, and find meaning in limited vocational or educational programs. Religious services offer community and emotional support. These moments of humanity exist within a system that prioritizes control over rehabilitation. Former inmates describe waking before dawn, marching across endless fields, and returning exhausted each night. Some recall hopelessness, working for a system that benefits others more than themselves. Others speak of constant surveillance, the pressure to anticipate guards' expectations, and the struggle to maintain dignity. The psychological toll of labor is intensified by a challenging social environment. Inmates navigate strict rules, constant observation, and complex relationships. The monotony is draining, making labor both a physical and mental challenge. Angola's labor practices have long been controversial. Human rights advocates argue that paying pennies for work that generates large profits is exploitative. Legal challenges have raised concerns about safety, medical care, and solitary confinement. Calls for reform emphasize rehabilitation, fair compensation, and education. Field labor at Angola is tied to a deeper historical legacy. The crops and livestock connect inmates to a lineage of forced labor stretching back to the plantation era. The long hours and harsh conditions serve as reminders that history still shapes life inside the prison. The system also reflects broader social issues. Marginalized communities are disproportionately represented, raising concerns that Angola perpetuates racial and economic inequalities. Critics argue the prison benefits from the labor of society's most vulnerable, raising questions about justice and fairness. Despite these challenges, inmates still find pockets of endurance, supporting each other, pursuing education, or participating in religious activities. These instances show that even within rigid control, humanity persists. The daily rhythms of Angola, labor, surveillance, and strict schedules, continue without pause. Each day, inmates rise, work, and return to their cells in a cycle shaped by history and authority. The fields, rooted in a legacy of slavery and prison farming, remain central to understanding Angola's identity. Angola's story is ultimately about survival, resilience, and the struggle for dignity. Daily life there reflects broader debates about prison reform, labor ethics, and systemic inequality. Understanding inmates' routines is essential to understanding the prison's significance. As dusk falls, inmates return to their cells exhausted, bound to a system that relies on their labor and obedience. Angola remains a symbol of historical continuity and the ongoing challenges of justice, a place where past and present collide, revealing the complex reality of life behind bars in one of America's most infamous prisons. Inside Angola Prison, life is defined not just by labor and schedules, but by the intricate social structure that develops among inmates living under constant supervision. Within the walls, a complex network of hierarchies, alliances, and rivalries exists, often invisible to the outside world. Survival here is as much about navigating relationships and understanding the unspoken rules as it is about performing physical labor or following formal regulations. Inmates learn early that respect, vigilance, and awareness are essential to maintaining safety and dignity. Every gesture, conversation, and movement carries weight, and the consequences of misjudgment can be severe, though not always physical. Daily life inside Angola extends far beyond the labor-intensive fields. Inmates spend much of their time within their housing units, which vary from dormitory-style rooms to more restrictive cell blocks. These spaces are functional, austere, and designed for maximum control. Privacy is minimal and noise is constant. Even in rest periods, the sense of observation is ever present, whether from guards, surveillance cameras, or fellow inmates. Meals, though basic, are shared communally, providing a rare opportunity for conversation and human connection. Within these constrained environments, friendships, mentorships, and informal social networks form, offering emotional support and a sense of belonging in an otherwise controlled setting. Recreation, though limited, plays a critical role in inmate life. Angola provides designated areas for exercise, sports, and group activities, but access is regulated and time is short. These moments are essential for physical and mental health, offering inmates a temporary reprieve from the monotony and demands of their daily routines. Religious and educational programs also serve as critical outlets, allowing inmates to seek spiritual growth, literacy, or vocational skills. Participation is voluntary but highly sought after, and those engaged in such programs often gain respect within the inmate community. Despite these opportunities, the challenges are relentless. Inmates must constantly navigate the potential for conflict, whether arising from personal disputes, gang affiliations, or the stress of confinement. Tensions can escalate quickly in such a high-pressure environment, and individuals must be skilled at de-escalation, compromise, or strategic withdrawal to avoid confrontation. The psychological strain is immense, and long-term incarceration can exacerbate feelings of isolation, depression, and anxiety. Angola, like many prisons, functions not only as a space of containment but as a social laboratory where human behavior is magnified, tested, and constrained. Labor remains central to the inmate experience. Fields are not just sites of physical exertion but also spaces where social dynamics play out. Hierarchies among workers often mirror broader social structures, with informal leaders or long-term inmates exerting influence over others. Compliance with work expectations and adherence to unspoken codes are crucial, as failure to do so can lead to isolation or punishment. The repetitive nature of the labor is both physically demanding and mentally taxing, reinforcing discipline while highlighting the monotony and control inherent in the prison environment. Health and well-being are persistent concerns. Inmates often face limited access to medical care, and conditions such as heat exhaustion, musculoskeletal injuries, and stress-related illnesses are common. Psychological challenges are compounded by isolation from family and the outside world, strict routines, and the enduring pressure to conform. Angola offers programs aimed at addressing these concerns, including counseling, medical treatment, and vocational training, yet access is uneven, and demand frequently exceeds availability. The result is a population navigating not only physical labor but also the enduring strain of mental and emotional challenges. Individual stories illuminate the human dimension of Angola. One inmate recalls the significance of small victories, completing a field task efficiently, gaining the respect of peers, or earning the privilege of participating in an educational program. Another speaks to the value of camaraderie, the bonds formed in shared struggle and daily routine. These narratives emphasize resilience, adaptation, and the enduring pursuit of purpose, even in circumstances designed to limit autonomy and personal growth. Each inmate's story adds nuance to the broader understanding of life at Angola, revealing the tension between systemic control and personal agency. Angola Prison also serves as a lens through which to examine broader societal issues. The disproportionate representation of racial and socioeconomic minorities reflects systemic inequities in the criminal justice system. Labor practices, limited educational opportunities, and restrictive social environments intersect with these disparities, reinforcing cycles of disadvantage. Observing life within Angola provides insight into how incarceration operates not only as a mechanism of punishment but as a reflection of societal structures and priorities. These insights are critical for discussions of reform, ethics, and justice. The emotional landscape of Angola is layered and complex. Inmates experience a wide range of emotions: fear, frustration, hope, camaraderie, and occasional joy. Moments of reflection occur quietly in cells or during brief solitary walks across the yard. Longing for family, memories of freedom, and personal aspirations coexist with the routines and obligations of prison life. These experiences underscore the resilience of the human spirit, even under conditions designed to limit freedom and choice. Visiting Angola, one is struck by the scale of the institution and the intensity of daily life. Fields, cell blocks, workshops, and recreation yards each tell part of the story, but the true narrative is found in the interactions, struggles, and adaptations of the inmates themselves. They navigate a highly structured, high-pressure environment with strategies honed over time, relying on social networks, compliance, resilience, and above all, a capacity to endure. The prison, in turn, functions as a controlled microcosm, reflecting historical legacies, societal disparities, and enduring debates over labor, rehabilitation, and human rights. As the sun sets over Angola, the rhythm of daily life persists. Inmates return to their cells, ready to repeat the cycle the next day, shaped by experience, survival strategies, and the bonds formed in shared confinement. Angola's culture, like its labor and routines, is deeply entwined with its history. Understanding inmate life provides a window into the broader realities of incarceration, revealing the ways in which people adapt, endure, and maintain identity and dignity even in highly controlled environments. Angola Prison's inmate experience is both challenging and revealing. The combination of strict schedules, demanding labor, complex social dynamics, and limited opportunities shapes lives in profound ways. Observing and understanding these realities is essential for appreciating the human dimension of incarceration, the impact of systemic practices, and the ongoing conversations about reform and justice. Life inside Angola is a continuous negotiation between survival, compliance, and the pursuit of personal purpose, offering lessons about endurance, resilience, and the enduring capacity of the human spirit. Angola Prison's present-day reality cannot be understood without examining the history that shaped it. The institution sits on land steeped in one of the most complex and painful legacies in American history. Long before Angola became the nation's largest maximum security prison, it operated as a massive plantation in the 1800s, where enslaved Africans labored under brutal conditions. The plantation was named Angola, after the region in Central Africa where many of the enslaved people were taken from, linking the land directly to the transatlantic slave trade. When slavery legally ended, the land's purpose shifted, but the systems of forced labor, hierarchy, and control persisted in different forms. For many historians and advocates, the modern labor system at Angola echoes that past in ways that continue to shape public debate and scrutiny. When the plantation was converted into a prison in the late 19th century, it initially operated under a system known as convict leasing. Under this structure, incarcerated individuals, most of whom were black, were rented out to private companies and plantations as laborers. This was widely criticized as slavery by another name, as inmates were paid nothing, subjected to harsh working conditions, and often received inadequate food, shelter, and medical care. Although Angola no longer practices convict leasing, its identity as one of the last large-scale prison farms keeps these historical comparisons alive. The parallel between past and present is not lost on observers who study the trajectory of the American penal system. As the decades progressed, Angola became the subject of national attention due to its overcrowding, violence, and poor living conditions. By the mid-20th century, it was frequently referred to as the bloodiest prison in America, a reputation fueled by media reports, lawsuits, and testimonies from former inmates who described the environment as chaotic and dangerous. These conditions prompted investigations by journalists, lawmakers, and civil rights organizations. The prison's administration faced growing pressure to address issues ranging from inadequate healthcare to unsafe labor practices. These challenges prompted a series of reforms, though progress was slow and often met with resistance. The complexity of Angola's past made it difficult to separate contemporary operations from long-standing institutional culture. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Angola underwent a series of reforms designed to improve security, provide educational opportunities, and reduce violence within the facility. These changes included expanding vocational programs, increasing access to religious services, and enhancing oversight. Angola established programs such as farming apprenticeships, theological education, and re-entry preparation courses. Supporters of reform argue that these initiatives have had positive effects, offering inmates pathways for personal development and skill building. Critics, however, contend that such programs, while valuable, do not offset deeper systemic concerns surrounding labor practices, compensation, and inmate rights. They argue that progress is uneven and often overshadowed by the magnitude of Angola's challenges. One of the most notable aspects of Angola's transformation is the establishment of various inmate-run programs. These range from peer-led educational initiatives to faith-based communities and support groups. Such programs are often credited with reducing internal conflict and fostering a sense of purpose within the population. The Angola Prison Rodeo, one of the most widely recognized events associated with the institution, has also drawn national attention. While the rodeo has been promoted as a way to generate revenue and provide entertainment, it has also been met with controversy, raising questions about ethics, safety, and the portrayal of incarcerated individuals in a highly publicized event. These dual realities reflect Angola's ongoing struggle to balance tradition, reform, and public perception. Healthcare within Angola has also been shaped by historical legacies. For many years, the prison faced criticism for inadequate medical access, understaffed facilities, and outdated equipment. Lawsuits over the years have highlighted concerns about the treatment of chronic illnesses, mental health support, and emergency care response times. Reforms have aimed to improve these systems, and new clinics, training programs, and oversight procedures have been introduced. However, critics maintain that inconsistencies persist, and that the scale of the prison population makes comprehensive, timely care difficult to deliver. These concerns remain central to the ongoing conversation about inmate welfare and institutional accountability. The prison's reputation, both past and present, has had a significant impact on how it is perceived in national conversations about criminal justice. Angola has become a symbolic reference point in discussions about mass incarceration, racial disparities, and the ethics of prison labor. Documentaries, news reports, and advocacy campaigns often highlight the prison as an emblematic case study of systemic issues within the United States. This attention has spurred both criticism and calls for reform, encouraging policymakers, community leaders, and the public to examine the broader implications of incarceration practices. Angola's visibility in popular media ensures that its operations and history remain subjects of national interest. In the broader context of criminal justice reform, Angola stands as a reminder of how deeply historical legacies influence modern systems. Advocates for reform argue that addressing present-day concerns requires acknowledging these historical roots. They emphasize that effective change must go beyond improving working conditions or expanding programs. It must also involve re-evaluating sentencing practices, strengthening oversight, improving access to education and mental health services, and enhancing transparency in prison operations. Legal scholars and reform organizations continue to push for comprehensive strategies that balance accountability, rehabilitation, and human dignity. The evolution of Angola Prison is a testament to the complicated interplay between history, policy, and public perception. While the institution has made strides in addressing some of the most pressing issues of its past, many challenges remain unresolved. The ongoing debates surrounding labor practices, healthcare, and inmate rights ensure that Angola stays at the center of critical discussions about the future of American corrections. Understanding these issues in full requires not only examining the institution's operations but also confronting the societal values and structures that have shaped it across generations. As the narrative of Angola continues to unfold, its legacy remains deeply entwined with the complex history of the United States. The prison stands as a physical and symbolic reminder of how systems of labor, control, and punishment have evolved, and how the echoes of the past still resonate in modern institutions. For inmates, staff, policymakers, and the public, Angola's story serves as a powerful lens through which to explore questions of justice, reform, and human dignity. The path forward is shaped by the willingness of society to confront these realities and work toward a more equitable and rehabilitative future. The night air outside the facility felt heavier than before, almost as if the building behind them was holding its breath, waiting for one last chance to pull them back inside. Detective Arai stepped into the cold blue glow from the street lamps, the file gripped so tightly in his hand that the edges cut into his skin. It didn't matter. He needed to feel something real after everything they had uncovered. Officer Nakamura locked the steel door behind them, the metallic click echoing through the empty parking lot like a final punctuation mark. The wind carried the faint smell of rain, mixing with the sterile scent that still clung to their clothes from inside the archive room. They walked slowly toward the car, neither speaking, both replaying the truth they had just uncovered. The documents they found weren't just old case files. They were proof. Proof that someone inside the department had manipulated evidence, rerouted investigations, buried testimonies, and controlled outcomes for years, quietly, precisely, safely hidden beneath layers of false paperwork. The kind of truth that didn't destroy careers. It destroyed legacies. Nakamura finally broke the silence, his voice low and almost hollow. If this gets out, it changes everything. Arai closed his eyes briefly. He understood the weight of it. The scandal hidden in that basement had the power to fracture trust in every corner of the city. But leaving it buried meant becoming part of it. They stood beside the patrol car, blue reflections dancing across the windows like shifting shadows. Arai opened the file again, letting the pages flutter in the breeze. Every sheet felt like a confession. Every signature felt like a betrayal. "We can't keep this quiet," he said, the decision forming not from impulse but from duty that went deeper than the job. "It ends now." Nakamura nodded, a mixture of fear and relief settling into his expression. Together they placed the file on the dashboard, its contents illuminated by the faint glow from the street lamp above. For the first time that night, the truth wasn't hidden underground. It was in the open, exposed, breathing. Arai looked back at the silent building one last time. It stood tall, still and indifferent, but no longer untouchable. The secrets it guarded were no longer its own. As they got into the car and pulled out of the lot, the facility faded into the distance behind them, swallowed by the blue night. The road ahead felt uncertain but honest. And in that uncertainty, the story found its ending, not in darkness but in the decision to drag the truth into the light. No matter the cost.